Hello everyone, how are we all? Let's have a see. I've got a few of you with me already, which is great. How are we all? I just want to check first that you can all hear me before I continue. I'll just check. I think everything's working. My microphone's on, so if you can just let me know with a thumbs up. Hi Kathy. Hi Marion. How are you? Hi Tracy. Hi Lorraine. Loud and clear. Oh, brilliant. Hello Beverly. Thank you for that. It's great that you can all hear me. I can continue. Okay, that's great. Okay, so let's go back up to the top. What was that? Hi Tracy. Oh, thank you. Yes, happy birthday to Lisa Horton Crafts. Can you believe 5 years this year? It's gone really, really quick. And I say I've been here right from the start, so I can't. I don't ever remember not crafting with Lisa stuff now, and my shelves are groaning under the weight of all of these sets that I have from her. But yeah, long may it continue. There's a lot happening this year. Although things have changed in the craft industry, it's full force ahead. It really is. And hopefully many of you tuned in to see Lisa on Friday last week, where she launched her brand new metallic inks from her new studio. She had Dan Bancroft in with her from previously from Create and Craft, but he's out doing wonderful things and allowing everybody to come together and say building another craft community so we can all still catch up with each other all in one place. But Lisa's studio did look fab, didn't it? So we look forward to a lot more coming from there. So it's nice to be back with you this week. Now, thank you, Kathy. You say I should have actually been here with you making this particular card last Thursday, but last Thursday, but with the storm that we had rolling in, which actually proved to be quite catastrophic to a lot of people, actually. Fortunately, sort of touch wood here, bookcase there, we actually got away pretty lightly. We didn't lose power, amazingly. We're in the southern tip of Ireland here, so we had pretty much the full force of it as it landed. A lot of people around me, a lot of people I know had damage and lost power. There's a lot of trees down. I'm still picking up sort of twigs and a lot of debris out of the garden, but you know, we are safe and sound. So unfortunately I had to spend last Thursday prepping for that and making sure everything was weighted down. I've done some batch cooking to make sure we had something to eat if the power went, you know, just these things gone on top of it. I was even clearing out drains and gutters and things as well. So I really the furthest thing from making nice pretty things as I could, but say it all paid off and all safe and sound, so I can be with you here today actually, and I can make this card with you. So hi Bonnie, how are you? You've just posted. Oh, brilliant, thank you very much. You do a great job of letting everybody know in that group as well, Bonnie. So who have we got? We got Sue and Marion. Hi Mum, saw you pop in there. We've got Jill and Teresa. Teresa, you got this one coming. Oh, did you manage to get this on the pick of the week? I think I had a quick look this morning. It's still on the website as pick of the week as well, so that's perfect. It's a really, really nice one. It's one of the early sets, but it's so pretty, and I think it's just perfect for this time of year. Hi Helen, how's you? And we've got Carol as well. So let's get going. You'll notice on the side here that I've popped a card up by a design team member, Mary, with the card there using Tracy Hayes' Splash collection. Now, it was asked if I could actually make this style of card, which is what I've done with these products here. So although I mean, this what Mary's done is really, really pretty. So I think she's used acetate and she's used Tracy Hayes Splash papers and the stamps to create that. But what I've taken on is the style of that card, but I've used the pick of the week. So it just proves just how versatile and how different you can make these card styles look. Even if you were just to stick, if you didn't really make shaped cards at all, which I generally don't unless I'm prompted to, and then I'm grateful for it because I learn new things as I go along. But if you were just to take one shaped card and use different sets, different colours, you can make it look so different. So put these two side by side here. You can see Mary's, which is the one that was initially in the group, and somebody asked if we could make it, and this is my take on that as well. So thanks to Mary for making that initially. We've got Catherine and Jean arrive as well. It's lovely to have you here. So I'm going to swap that slide now. I'm going to bring this one in here just to show you everything that I've used. So I'm going to pop that to the side. So as I say, I'm using the Buttercup Bloom, which is pick of the week. It is one of the very, very early sets. So therefore we have the layering stencils and we have the 3D embossing folder along with a die which sits with the embossing folder for this one. It's a really lovely set. There's so many different ways to use it. As you can see from the card I'm making, actually I'm not actually using the entire image, but I will stencil it for you, just so you can see that come together. I've also made use of some of the new fundamental dies which are coming out, and this worked perfectly with this particular shaped cards. It's the Fundamentals Nested Arches. It's a really lovely set. I've used it quite a lot already. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dies in this. You'll see these ones in particular I've just turned over. These also have the stitched detail into this. I've just turned them over just to remind myself which ones I've used for this project. So they come in an A6 packaging. Actually, all the dies come in A6 packaging, but you get a lot of dies. Excuse me, a lot of dies for your money. And you can see on the packaging here, actually, the largest die in this particular set is 4.7 inches tall. So that's just short of 12 centimetres, and it's 3.7 inches in width, which is just short of, well, it's just over 9 centimetres wide. So that's the largest die, and that obviously goes down in increments to the smallest one. But I'm also using this set as well. Hello Love. This is also in stock. I had a quick look before I came on. This is purely word dies. It has 10 dies in it. I'll take them out and show you actually. It's with love. It's a really useful set actually. Not necessarily only for Valentine's. You do have love in it. You have 4 words. You have with, and you have with in 2 different sizes. Yeah, slightly different sizes actually, but 2 different fonts. Then we have you, again, 2 different fonts, which gives you 2 different sizes really. Then we have love. We have 3 dies for love, and they small, medium, large, I would say is how I've organised them. And again, they are 3 different fonts there. And then you have hello, which is a lovely word to use as well. It's just really generic. It's a nice friendly thing to put on the front of a card. And again, 3 dies, so you have 3 different sizes, 3 different fonts. So again, you get a lot for your money in that one. So those are the die sets that I'm using. You can see the inks that I'm using there, just 3 inks actually today. I've the Juicy Pineapple and Margarita. That's all I've used, with a very slight hint of Cherry Bomb. You can choose whether to use that one or not, or I've used the Interference just so I can perhaps get a slight bit of the mica on there, but you can use any pink to layer on top of this, or you could just leave this yellow in true sort of Buttercup fashion. So then I'm going to move on to the details on how to make the card. Now I'll go through this quickly, and I'll put this up back up at the end just so as I can have a full screen when I'm making this up for you. but I shall give you the dimensions of the card. Okay, we have it in it. You can see that it folds flat. This then makes this a length of 12 inches. So you can create this from one sheet of 12 by 12 scrapbooking paper, which is how I've managed to cut this today. So you can see using Lisa's T ruler that this is 12 inches in length. The height of this is just over 4 inches, so it's 4 1/8, 4 1/8 inches. How do you say that? 4 inches and 1/8. I've got it written down there at the top. You can see. Now this closes to make an A6 card itself, so you'll be able to put this into a C6 envelope. So closed, this actually measures 6 inches by just over 4 inches, as you can see there. So the components we need for this, so you can create this from one sheet of 12 by 12 paper. So obviously the card base, as I've just said, 12 inches by just over 4 inches, and this is the back layer of the card, the one that you can see here, and we need to score that, and I'm going to okie dokie, we can do that. We can score this. So this is the actual card base. We need to score this at 6 inches. So basically we're just folding this in half. I always get a bit confused with the measurements on there, and to make sure I do this right, I'm going to bring in my other scoring tool, just because I know where I'm going with this one and I know I'll get it correct. So this is our card base. So we've made that now, we've just scored that in half, and you'll see that it's a landscape card actually, which is why I went for the 12 by 12 inch piece of paper to actually create this. Now the second piece, which is the insert, again, I'm also doing this yellow. You can choose the colours that you want. It might be quite nice if you contrast this and perhaps put it in white, but this is also I'm also using a textured cardstock for this, and for the card base, then obviously the outside of the card is where I want the texture, because I'm not going to see the majority of this inside. But for the insert here, I want the textured cardstock to be sort of outmost really. So I'm going to be working on this side, and this piece we want to score 3 times to create 4 panels. So we want to score at 3 inches, 6 inches and 9 inches. Okay, so that's is about as tricky as it gets, I would say. So this panel, so now we need to fold this to create the insert. So initially we want to fold this in half. So we go to our middle fold and we fold this upwards. So basically making our card blank. And I'll show you this in relation to what we're doing here. This is our card base that we're going to attach it to. So we want our middle fold to be towards yourself. So the opposite of what the card base would be. So laying this back down, we go back to our 2 outer folds and we fold those in the opposite direction. So we fold those with flaps basically on, you know, in towards that center fold, and I'm going to give them a quick burnish. And the same with that center fold there. So now we have our piece which will sit like this. So the middle fold is the opposite to what is happening on the card blank. And basically how we then attach the 2 pieces together, because they are the same shape, they will lay flat and be the same size. So we will use the back of this first panel and line that up to the edge of the card base there. Okay, and we do exactly the same with the last panel. So panel 4, we will line that up on the other side of the card blank, and that will give you your pop out shape that's here. Now I shall leave that to the side. Now, when you actually look at the finished one, when this closes up and folds together, the insert doesn't protrude past the out opening of the card there. You do have some bulk here, but that is fine. And you can see how that sits together. Now, at this stage, I won't be putting the card together. You'll see why in a second. Now, you'll see from this insert that you could quite easily work away like this, actually. You could decorate these panels on the inside and you'll still have, it's a lovely design in itself, depending on what stamps, dies, embellishments that you have for this. But you'll notice both on Mary's card and therefore this one, these two centre panels are actually apertures. So what I will do at this stage now, and you'll see, I've actually given you the how to cut the arches here, but what I want to do is actually use the die to cut the dimension or cut the apertures. So what I want to do is just make sure that I get the right size. So that's the one here. So I'm using the aperture die that just over 3 inches tall. So, and the reason why I've done that is because then I can add the frame around the outside, and then I can use another arch to actually it gives me enough space around the arch actually to attach the buttercup behind. So what I want to do is put this one aside. We don't need that for a second. So we want to cut our 2 apertures from these 2 centre folds. Really easy to do. You can do this by eye. You can eyeball this initially. So I'm going to die cut that first one there. I'm just going to get myself a little bit of tape just to keep that in place. Okay, so I'm just going to eyeball that, make sure that's sort of centered. You can use a ruler to line that up if you wanted to. So I'm just going to die cut that through. Now obviously we make sure that the whole card is laying flat, so we're only cutting through the one section there. So we have one aperture, and then we have a nice arch that we can keep for another project. So keep that in your envelope. Now to make sure these line up, again, you can do it by eye if you've got a particularly good eye for that, or we can use Lisa's ruler. So we butt it, the ruler up to the side of the card there. I know that that's a straight edge because I cut that. We line up the ruler to the bottom of the arch, and actually amazingly I cut that quite straight. And then we can use that as a guide to line up the bottom of our arch again and just center that into the panel, and then you have a pretty good bet that all your arches are lined up. So it's another good use for your T ruler there as well. Okay, so we end up with a second arch. I've got a nice little collection of those now in my envelope, so I can make another card with those at some stage. So we have our insert to our card, our pop-out insert or our 3D insert, which now has has our 2 apertures cut out of that. So again, I'll just show you how this is beginning to form. Again, I'm not going to attach this at this side, but there you go. You can see we have the 2 apertures. Now, I'm using arches because it works really well. You can use any of your nesting dies, and therefore you can use any shape for your apertures if you want to. I'm going to attach something within the aperture, but you could, if you wanted to, actually attach acetate through the aperture, and then you could actually create your interest on the inside of the card on the back layer onto the base card. So there's lots of different options that you can do. Now, while this is here, I've cut myself out 2 frames which will go around these arches. So I'm just going to attach these on now. I'll do that quickly so they can be drying nicely while we do our stenciling. And I thought just the yellow and the white, I mean, obviously that's, the yellow is classic Buttercup colours, but if you were to use any other colours, you know, you can make this look so smart and so pretty, but yellow and white is just, I don't know, nice bright and sunny, isn't it? I think we definitely need a bit of that at the moment, although the sun's shining out there today. Actually, it's actually been dry, but the garden just can't take any more rain. It's so soggy out there. But anything just to brighten up our days at the moment, isn't it? We definitely need spring on its way. Okay, so I'm just going to add my frames to the arches there, and that's just a really nice finishing off detail, isn't it? It makes them look like windows now, doesn't it? So I'm just going to press those down, make sure that they dry. Okay, I can put those to one side just to let them set, I think. Let's put my pin back in the glue. Okay, right. Now I'll just run through the rest of what I've got on this slide here. The arches, I've said to cut 2 arches in white, which are 3.5 inches tall. These would be the 2 arches for these 2 outer panels here. Then you need 2 panels at 4 inches tall, and these would be for the centre panels here, but I'll show you how we use those in a second. Then we have the green frames, which I've cut. Again, these are 4 inches tall, but these fit around these panels here, and these are going to go on the outer edges. What have I just done with that one? Oh yeah, this one here. And that's what will attach to these panels here. And then the words are die cut from, I've die cut them in grey, but again, you can choose which colour you want to do that from. So I'll put this slide up again at the end of the video. So I shall just remove that now, and then I can put your comments on and let's see where. Okay, could you cut both apertures at the same time? If your apertures are symmetrical, then yes, you probably could. You could probably cut them like that. And if you are actually going to be covering the cut edge with a frame like this, then yes, I would. Otherwise, I possibly wouldn't, because I know when you die cut, you get the nice clean edge from the front, but then you get the edge when you turn over, and it's not cut quite so nice. Well, it is cut nicely, but always looks like the reverse. So if you're not going to be covering the cut edge, then I would say cut them individually, because you get that nice bevel edge of being a die cutting sort of face downwards, if that makes sense. I could have actually die cut these at the same time, because I'm actually, yeah, as you say, because I did cover that cut edge. But obviously, if you are not using symmetrical shape to die cut the aperture, then your aperture is going to be mirrored, which again could actually look quite nice too. Yeah, so there we are. Oh, So this card, it does fit in a C6 envelope. So many card designs for the US use A2 card size. Oh, that's one thing I keep forgetting. I really must learn and brush up on my American card sizes. It's not something I can ever keep in my brain. Right, so what I'm going to do, where's my card stock? I thought I got some card stock out. I will, I've got cards. Oh, I know what I've done. I've already used it. Okay, so there's a couple of ways we can do this to stencil. Because I'm just using small elements here, the way that I actually created this card was to die cut my arches and then stencil onto them. So I will do that because it's maybe something that that you may not be familiar with doing. And I will also got myself another piece of cardstock there. There we are. I will also stencil this in its entirety, just so you can see this come together as well. So the Buttercup Blooms is a set of 6 stencils. They come together really, really nicely. Again, I've only used the 2 colours on this, which usually when I do floral stencils, I use a whole array of colours, but really only needs 2. This first layer for the flowers really needs to be quite light, I found, because if you actually look at the image here, particularly as I'm layering a yellow on top, you really want this first layer to be really light, so you get that nice definition of the petals there. If it's too dark, you don't get the definition. If I show you here the difference, this one here, this first layer, I went too heavy with the yellow, and therefore you can see that I don't have that definition between the petals. Again, it's a really nice look. It depends on what you want it to look like, of course, but here you can actually see the definition, and also on this one as well. So that's why I do try to go quite light on this first layer with the Buttercup. So really light there. And now we can come in a lot heavier and really lay down that true sort of Buttercup colour. So we can do that really quickly with our large brush there. If I take that away, you can actually see the difference in the 2 layers, which is, I think, works sort of best with this particular design. Actually, before I move on, I've got the cherry bomb here. Now, what I did do, you don't have to do this. I thought it was quite a nice idea, and sometimes you can use an orange or perhaps something more pinkier, but just to add a little bit of interest, I'm just coming in with the cherry bomb. It's an interference colour, so I was hoping to get a little bit of the mica flakes in this. I'm going to pick up the ink, take off the majority of that onto the stencil material, and using the sponge, just wipe just really gently into the flowers, and all that's going to do is to add just a tiny bit of colour. Now, I know buttercups don't have extra colour on them, but sometimes it's nice just to add that little bit of extra shading. So when I take that away, it doesn't really alter the colour of the flowers too much, but it does just give just a slight hue. So if you've perhaps gone a little bit darker on your first layer with the yellow, and you do want to highlight the petals just that little bit more, adding this second colour in can actually help you with that. So we have stencil number 3. Now this is the foliage that needs to come in. It's a really lovely spray, actually. I mean, it can be used in so many different ways. I'm not using the entire image in one piece on this particular card, purely because it's a smaller shaped card, but for one, it shows that using a 6x6 stencil doesn't limit you to making a 6x6 design card. And also it's nice to cherry pick sometimes, or just to sort of fussy cut out. And I'll show you a couple of different ways of how we can do this. So I'll just lay down the majority of the ink with that large brush here. Now I'm just going to come in with the stencil brush just quickly and just darken up some of these areas. I'm using Margarita, really nice fresh green colour, really lovely. Now obviously we've got woodland moss, and we have we have garden sage, eucalyptus leaves that you can also use as well, but I think in this instance it was just nice to stay nice and fresh. So I've just created an extra bit of shading on there. A lot of this, a lot of the leaves actually go really pale. You could darken them up as well if you wanted to. It's entirely up to you. I think that's a great thing about Lisa's stencils is you can stencil it to look exactly the way that you want it to look. Now come on to stencil number 4, and just simply taking the juicy pineapple again and just doing those centers to the flowers, making sure I'm putting plenty of ink on just so as they really pop. And you can see that makes a huge difference. It's such a pretty stencil, it really is, this one, and comes together so quickly. So stencil number 5, come back in with a Margarita. Again, it is going to be tone on tone, so I want to make sure that I put plenty of ink on this time, because I am layering Margarita or the green colour over the lighter green. But because I'm using a stencil brush initially, it means I can pick up a lot more ink to put through these smaller areas of this stencil, and that does sort of intensify the colour quite quick. So I can actually lay that colour down quite quick, and you can see when I take that away that although I've gone tone on tone, it really does sort of bring the leaves to life. And then just like that, we're on to that last stencil. Now we have a little bit of shading and just a little bit of extra accents for some of the leaves, not all of them. So again, I'm just doing with this with the same stencil brush as before, so making sure that I put on plenty of ink just through those little areas. And you can see just straight away just how fresh that image is, even onto white as it is. If you were to stencil in black over that, if you stamp a sentiment in black straight over that and just put that onto the front of the card, I think that would just be glorious. I think it's really lovely. Now obviously that image is too large to fit on what we're making here. We could die cut it actually and probably put it onto the front of the card, and I've got one here that I've already die cut, and we could actually put it on the outside of the card just to add that little bit of interest. Okay, so I'm just going to put this to one side, and I said to initially die cut the arches out of the card, which is what I've done here. Now I'm going to re-stencil this, but I'm going to pick and choose under the stencil where I want my images to be. Now I've already done one here. Now you can see this is going to be either this panel or this panel. It already looks different to the ones that I've already put on there, so you can make this stenciling look different depending on the time that you do this. So I'm going to choose to stencil the image from there. Now you can use your tacky mat to keep your cardstock in place underneath if you want to. This silicone mat does a brilliant job of that also. So I'm going to start stenciling from there, and you will see straight away that some of the image is hanging off of the cardstock, which is fine, which is exactly what I want. So I don't need to worry about stenciling this area at all. Now it does mean, because I'm stenciling onto a smaller piece of cardstock, that I can actually stencil this a lot quicker. And I'm going to do this in exactly the same way as I stenciled before, but you will actually see this come together a lot quicker onto our aperture. Now this doesn't have to be done for this style of card. If you wanted to only have a tag on the front of a straightforward regular card, then it might be an idea just to stencil, die cut your tag or your shape first, whether it be an arch or any one of the other fundamental die sets even, but say it's your choice. But it does mean that I don't need to worry about all of this part of the stencil here. I'm only stenciling onto or through the areas of the stencil that are actually sitting over my arch. So it gives you a whole different perspective on this particular stencil when you're stenciling it, which again is really nice. It sort of reinvigorates it. It feels like you're using a new image. Okay, just how pretty is that? Even just that on its own, maybe you could use that as a gift tag even, you know, punch a hole in it, put some ribbon through. It's just a really pretty, and it doesn't only apply to this particular set. Imagine all of the other floral sets and stencils that Lisa has brought out for us. It would work for all of them. And you can see just how quick we can actually stencil this image. Now this one in particular really only has just that one little leaf that is sitting on the arch, so I really don't need to worry about all of that. And there we are, we have one of our panels to sit on either end of our card. Now what I do need to do to make this complete is to emboss, and we would do this in exactly the same way as if we had the full image, only you just have less of the image to line up. And because the cardstock or the arch is way smaller than the embossing folder, then it fits in there no problem. So just pick out your section of the design. And again, we have our little standalone tag there. You can see that's embossed. Again, stick that onto the front of the card, but these actually relate to our two outer panels like so. So I shall come back to this in a second and actually construct the card in a moment. So I shall put those there. Now we can turn our attention to what's going on in the centre here, and you can see that we do have these as die cut images. What I've done, I've die cut, is that the one that I want? Or is, actually, you know what I've done? I've chosen the wrong one. Okay, not to worry, not to worry. What I'm going to do is, yeah, we can do that. So I'm going to stencil that image again onto another arch. What I've just done, this one that I've done here, is slightly larger than the one that I wanted to. So these larger image, and I did line this up on the slide initially, this larger arch is going to be sitting on the inside of the card like so, and this arch is the one that sits there. So I shall re-stencil this one in a second. So let's turn our attention back to stenciling this arch again, and then I can show you exactly where we're going with it all. That's apologies there, that was me getting confused with what I'd already die cut. So again, I'm going to stencil this arch. Now the process stays exactly the same actually. So regardless, you wanted to stencil both of the arches, both sizes, with the buttercup there in exactly the same way. So you can actually fussy cut. I'm just going to move that down a bit further actually, just so as we have a completely different type of image going onto this arch. So it's really nice just to sort of pick and choose your image through our stencil like so. So I'm going to do this really quickly. Now this one's going to look different again. Now what you could do actually is, again, depending on the project, it's actually really easy just to stencil the flowers. If you didn't want to have the foliage and you just wanted to isolate the flowers, the 2 stencils that actually allow you to do that don't have any foliage on them as well, so it gives you that option to really pick and choose and customize what it is that you're stenciling. So again, I'm just going to do this really quickly, only concentrating on the areas that are sitting on top of my die cut. It's nice to be able to pick and choose, because what it's doing is making each of the panels look very different and quite bespoke. So I could do those centre ones like so. And then to do the centre of these flowers. And I think if you were wanted to make a couple of these, or even if you had limited cardstock, actually, I think it's a really nice way to be able to do this. You're not stenciling the whole image each time, so it does mean that you sort of get through the project quite a lot quicker. You're not using any extra ink, and then you're not sort of left with bits of a design that isn't going to be used, that you've sort of already die cut into. So I'm just going to emboss this. Again, it's easy to line up. You just find the area of the design that you've stenciled. Okay, so there we are. Right, now we're back on track. Let's move those up there. So let's bring in the insert for the card. So we can see now that the 2 outer panels have been stenciled and embossed. Now these are the sizes, they both match. They match the frame apertures, or the apertures for the frame that are on the inside of this insert here. And that is important, actually. This first one that I stenciled is larger, and it'll all become apparent in a second as to why I had to get the right panel in the right place. So I'm going to put these down. Now again, it'll be a good idea actually to use your ruler to line these up, or you can just do that by eye. So I'm going to put both of those panels down, and then we should just add our frames around the outside. Now we could have just cut this as a solid arch without making the frame, but because of the way that this card folds up here, there's quite a lot of bulk sitting in this section of the card, so I thought it'd be actually a better idea to create these as frames, just to reduce the number of layers that are sitting on that area of the card, in case you were wondering. So we can just line those up around the outside. Initially I thought I was going to do these frames in grey, but it was a little bit too severe, and I thought this green worked really nicely. Let's just line those up. Okay, so that's the 2 outer panels sorted. Now what we need to do is concentrate on what's going on with the apertures here. And this is why this arch was that little bit larger, because I've stenciled. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to die cut this part of the design out, and attach this behind the aperture here. Now, to do that, we want to make sure that the design extends past the aperture, so we've actually got a little bit of card to apply the glue to actually stick it onto. So this is why this this arch was larger, and why it was important that it wasn't there, and it needs to be there. Now, ideally, I wouldn't have embossed this to start with. That was me just getting carried away with myself. But what I will do, and the reason why I've done this directly onto an arch to start with, is to make sure that I'm going to get that shape that is needed to fit within the aperture there. So there'll be no guesswork. So I know that once I've die cut this with the Buttercup die, which if you just take a moment just to orient yourself and get that into the right place, there we are, that we can die cut this. We don't need to worry about everything here, and it is going to be a very different type of die cut to what you're used to. So bear with me 1 second. Okay, so I can bring that back in. If I remove the die, remove the rest of the arch that we don't need, we are left with the Buttercup that is die cut and can now sit within that aperture like that. And if I turn that over, you can see that we have more than enough contact with that die cut to attach to the back of the aperture there. Now, the alternative way of doing that, if you're not happy doing it this way round, excuse me, the alternative way is to die cut your image fully like we've done here. Okay, now before you emboss this, you can either die cut out the image fully like this, and then we can die cut this image using the same size arch die as this one. So let me bring in the die that is going to fit across the aperture. You can see that we have a really nice border around the aperture here. So then we can use this die to die cut and fussy cut our actual flower in itself. Now, what you want to do when you do this is to make sure that you have enough contact points around the arch frame that gives us the chance to add glue and then adhere it to the back of the thing. So that's why I find it a little bit easier to actually stencil onto the right sized arch first and then die cut from there, because I know that I have them contact points. But it still works this way. You're just die cutting a die cut. So you can see here that I've lined this up so it's quite in the center. I'm going to have a lot of contact points for my glue. So I'm just going to die cut this now. Take my plate. Okay, so we can take that away. We have this part of the image that is sitting there, which is going to go into your aperture. You're left with all these little bits as well, which if you spent a long time stenciling them, you might not want to sort of throw away, which again is another reason why sort of stenciling onto the right sized arch frame is perhaps a good idea also. So let's just take that away from there. Just release that. Now this is going to be a little bit more fragile than it was initially, but not too much. But you can see that we have the arch shape going on there. And again, what you can do just to make sure that it stays true to the rest of the design, we can actually put this into our embossing folder. And I'll just line up the design. Have I got that the right way round? There we are. So just match up your design to the embossing folder. Now you can see if I hold the embossing folder straight that the design is not straight on the inside. So it does enable you to sort of fussy cut and really use parts of the design in a way that you might not have thought of before. Okay, right, now apologies, I've not really been checking. Not been checking your comments there. Okay, I can look back on your comments afterwards and answer any questions, but I think Lorraine's here, so is able to answer some of your questions as well. It's lovely to have you here, actually. There's a good few names that I don't recognise, so yeah, thanks for joining in. So we can see here that we have our two, let's move this out of the way, that we have our two apertures that are ready to sit in there, and both of them are really very different. So what we can do, we can actually use the stitch detail from the, now if I'm going to do this, hopefully you can see, we can use the stitch detail that has been left behind by the arch die, and we can actually use that as a guide for our glue. Okay, so we can just go around and add our glue to all those sections that are sitting outside of that stitch die, and I think that's a really useful point as well. So I'm just going to turn the arch over, and then we can just line up our, let's switch you back to the top camera so that makes more sense. There we are. So you can see now that we have a lot of contact with the outside of the aperture there to attach even something that is as delicate as this. So I'm going to do the same on this side. And this again, this is where your fine tipped glues really come into play. So I think I've got enough there. So I shall do the same on this one. And just manipulate that so it's sitting within the correct panel. What you don't want this to do is to sort of cross over the crease, because that will affect like the mechanism of the card. But using your fundamentals or any nesting die gives you that chance just to use the right shaped apertures but in the right sort of size increment. So using the larger arched die that is larger than the aperture that I cut there, then I know that that is going to fit in correctly. And there you see now that we have our insert panel. We have the reverse of the apertures there. Everything is all secured because we know we've used the right size dies to fit that. Now we can actually attach the two areas together. So the two outer panels is where we want to put our glue or your adhesive. You can use double-sided for this as well. So I'm going to attach, or you put the glue on there, and then carefully line up with the outside. Let me show you. Let me lay this. So I'm going to attach the insert so it lays flat and matches exactly the card blank on the outside, because the dimensions are exactly the same. So we can line up both edges, make sure that they're adhered. So when we close that up, then we have our card panel, and again that can close flat. Then once everything is dry, then you can actually sort of press everything into place so it is able to sit within your envelope for you there. So there we have that aperture. Now all that's left is to add a couple of word dies for you. So I haven't die cut them out, so I have my piece of grey card here. So I'm going to use the, I think I might just put hello on this one, so that it's a little bit different to the other one that I've made there. And I can use my small desktop machine for this one, which is perfect. So I can die cut my little word. Now, so we have our little die cut there, so I need a little pokey tool just to take that out of the design. Nice sparkly one there. If my sister lived any closer to me, she'd have this. She would have had this off of me. It's got little sparkly diamonds in there, and she's a bit of a magpie for anything sparkly, aren't you, Helen? You would have had this off of me, I'm sure, and found a use for it. Okay, so there we are. So I mean, I've chosen to put hello on there, but you have the option to add whatever sentiment that fits. You could add a die cut onto the panels there. You could replace one of the Buttercup panels actually with a large die cut word if it spans across the aperture. You could add just one aperture, and then you could have had one panel that you could add the sentiment onto. There's lots of different variations to be done with this particular style of card. So let me just add that into there. I think that just is set off really nicely with the yellow. So that's just going to take a moment or two to take. Okay, so there we are. We have our 3D like pop-up card. Again, it looks very different to the one that Mary initially made, but say that's the beauty of this style of card. And again, each card that you make will be different because the fussy cutting and the where you place your stencils on the arches to cut, again, make this look very different. So if you look at the aperture detail in there, both of them look very different. So, and even these outer panels here look very different. So yeah, you can have a little bit of fun, and it doesn't only just work with the Buttercup stencil. I think it will work with all of Lisa's florals as well. So would you decorate the front of the panel? Yes, could do. I would do if I had more time. You can actually decorate that as you would the front of a normal card, I would say. I would probably put a white panel on and perhaps a little bit of stenciling. I would perhaps put this on to the front and sort of just trim this down to size. And then, as you said, I think as Sue said, you could add just a white sheet on the back, and that could be where you actually write your sentiment, and that would actually sit really nicely on the reverse of the card there. But it's really, you get the wow moment when you open up the card, and actually it's a really nice one because it sits nicely on a mantelpiece. It won't be falling down. So yeah, there's an awful lot that can be done for the outside of the card as well, and I can leave that up to your imagination. So I think I'll leave that with you there today. I'm pretty sure there's a show at 3 o'clock, isn't there? I think Catherine is back on Hobby Maker with the fundamentals and the inks this afternoon as well. So I'll let you head off and catch up with that as well. Thanks so much for your company today. I'll be back with you again next week. So if there's anything that you want me to demo in the meantime, then give us a shout and I'll see what I can work in for you. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I shall see you again soon.